This is Tim Bryce with my column entitled Three Questions for Hillary Clinton. I watched Mrs. Clinton's press conference on Tuesday regarding her recent email troubles. For some strange reason, she began by discussing women's rights and the Iranian nuclear negotiations. Perhaps this was a smokescreen. I listened to her explanation about emails during her tenure as Secretary of State, but wasn't satisfied. As citizens, we want assurances our government workers are working diligently and not exposing themselves to hacking of information, thereby allowing the misappropriation of our country's intelligence. We also do not want to see our systems inappropriately used for personal purposes, just like any business. In addition, the government needs to be able to control and safeguard all pertinent records for future reference, which is the purpose of the National Archives. The first question is, why didn't Mrs. Clinton use the government's email system? According to the State Department's Foreign Affairs Manual, Volume 12 on Diplomatic Security, it says, quote, "It is the Department's general policy that normal day-to-day operations be conducted on an authorized AIS, Automated Information System, which has the proper level of security control," end quote. It goes on to read, quote, "The department is expected to provide and employees are expected to use approved secure methods to transmit SBU, sensitive but unclassified, information when available and practical," end quote. This begs the question, who approved her use of her email server, which is known as clintonemail.com? If it wasn't approved, it wasn't proper to use. Some journalists point out every Secretary of State for the last couple of decades has used private email. Such claims are attempting to establish precedents, but it certainly doesn't make it right. I never understood this logic. If you want precedents, let's consider U.S. Ambassador to Kenya Scott Gratian, who in 2012 was forced to resign his post for using private email outside the department's secure system. If this is good for an ambassador, how about the Secretary of State? Mrs. Clinton should answer why she needed a separate email server. Unless she can come forward with valid answers, the assumption will be she has something to hide. Certainly it cannot mean a person can only use one email account on a handheld device, as she suggests. People have used multiple email accounts on a single device for a long time. Second, did Mrs. Clinton transfer all of her records to the National Archives as prescribed by law? Obviously not. If she had, Congress could readily obtain them, and this wouldn't have flared up into an issue. If she is still in private possession of any emails on her server, she is in violation of the rules she is obliged to enforce. Third and final, did Mrs. Clinton instruct the employees in the State Department as to security of emails? Allegedly she did, but I have scoured the internet and cannot find anything to substantiate this. The policies regarding email security are universally applicable for all federal government agencies. This means people like Lois Lerner, formerly of the IRS, is probably guilty of violating federal policy. Not surprising, the federal statutes were written by attorneys and appear to be voluminous. It will likely take some time to sort them out and determine if Mrs. Clinton is guilty of anything. However, let us not forget she is also a graduate of the Yale Law School and served a stint as a congressional legal counsel, senator, and former chair of the Legal Services Corporation. Not to mention she is married to another attorney. In other words, she should have known better. Friends, keep the faith. This is Tim Bryce in Palm Harbor, Florida. Follow me on the internet at timbryce.com.